Johan Manzambi is one of the Bundesliga's breakout stars this season, a midfielder that can pretty much do it all. You'll find him all over the pitch. This guy will pop up at left wing, he'll pop up at right back. He's the kind of guy that can just be involved in every single facet of play. And he has the athletic profile to match it, but also the technical ability to receive it in any area of the pitch and be able to keep it secure, be able to progress the ball. A very, very interesting player who could kind of be profiled in any way you want him. And that's what's so interesting about him. You can shape him in kind of any way that the manager feels.
And he's a jack of all trades, but in the best possible way. And that, like you said, he could play all over the pitch, and he can do so really effectively. And if you look at for this season, his data as a midfielder playing more as like in a double pivot for Freiburg, his data still kind of shows that of a player that touches a lot of different aspects of the game. So first of all, really high impact in the final third in terms of shots and chances created, at least by midfield standards. Not the strongest in terms of like passing ability, at least the responsibility of passing, but specifically for things like progressive passes, he's really accurate when he does attempt those. So I think it does show that he has the capacity, if that was more of his role, to be able to just shoulder more of that burden. Of course, as a dribbler, you mentioned that he can pop up as a left winger or a right back. Those are both positions that really require the player to be a really strong dribbler, which he is. Probably one of the strongest dribblers, I think, as a in terms of like a midfield for like the U21 cohort. The numbers bear that out as well. He wins a ton of dribbles. He draws a ton of fouls. He's really tough to get off the ball, and he carries really well in space. And then the other thing, he's not like especially responsible out of possession. It's part of playing in a double pivot. He has another player that covers a lot of that responsibility, but he wins a lot of the duels. He doesn't attempt very many duels, but he wins a lot of them. And then in the air, as you know, if you'll follow along with the series, we really like players that win in the air, and that's something that he does as well.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of such a new modern type of midfielder. Basically, someone who is physically, athletically top, but also someone that can carry. I think there's so many midfielders now who are able to carry in transition, but also defend in transition because of their athletic profile combined with their technical profile. And that is something that's really in fashion. I'm thinking of the likes of Gravenberg. I'm thinking of the likes of Caicedo, Declan Rice. Like, there's so many midfielders that can kind of be vertical in terms of how they carry the ball, but also going backwards as well. So I think this is another one that fits that. And if I was going to compare him to someone, I feel like you've got your own comparisons coming, but the first thing that I thought is like a younger Dortmund style Jude Bellingham. Before he was kind of playing more as a second striker or a poacher. It's just the powerful carries, but also the mentality of wanting to be involved in absolutely everything and driving a whole team up by himself. He'll shoulder the responsibility of kind of everything on his plate. And I think that's such a nice mentality to have for such a young player.
Yeah, I definitely see Jude, and especially in terms of the ability to do a number of different things, play a number of different positions, and be influential in those. I definitely see that. Some of the players that I would compare him to, you can see here on the graph. This is plotted on this axis here, progressive runs, so that's self-explanatory. And then aerial duels one, you'll see there's a bit of a Pareto front where to be good at one, you kind of have to sacrifice the ability to be good at the other. Most of the players down over here, the midfielders, are smaller, like Pedri types, Vitinhas, that are, operate in a lot of space but are smaller, quicker, and then players that win in the air, right? Bigger, clunkier, stronger, but players that don't dribble as well. The players that kind of break the trend here a bit, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, a different kind of player, but you get that sort of a bigger but still pretty athletic. And then Adrian Rabiot, but then the two that I would most compare Manzambi to, at least for this regard, you mentioned Declan Rice is one of those players that carries really well but still has a lot of power. And then his name's kind of hidden, but Khéphren Thuram of Juve, another player that's primarily a carrier from the midfield, and that's how they like to progress up the pitch is through their carries rather than through their passing ability. That's who Manzambi is. That's how he's I guess he's best platformed, is as a player that can carry. And as well, you'll notice that he's the only one that's U21 in this cohort. Everybody else is, I mean, I think Thuram would be the next youngest at 24. All the others are like in their prime, or for Rabiot's case, probably getting past it. Manzambi's physically much more mature than I think a lot of U21 midfielders are, which is another feather in his cap.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because it begs the question of where he might end up position wise. So all those guys he's surrounded by are pretty much number eights. Although someone like Khéphren, Thuram, and Loftus-Cheek, at times in their career, people have struggled to kind of fit them because they see them as such technical dribblers, but then they see them as such big guys as well that at times they've been played out wide, Loftus-Cheek for sure. Sometimes they've played maybe too deep, Khéphren Thuram. Sometimes they've played too far forward. I think Loftus-Cheek, that's on his loan spells, he was kind of playing as a 10, and I always saw him as more of a number 8. So it'll be interesting to see where Manzambi ends up because yeah, I think there's a risk here that he gets thrown about a little bit because of how complete he is and how many different things he can do. I know he's played out wide a lot, even for the national team as well. So it'll be interesting to see where he kind of stakes a claim at his probably next club this summer.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up that it's he, he could be in a number of different positions. I wouldn't not look at this part as like, hey, he could actually do all of these. He is that type of player. But just to kind of put his versatility into perspective, these are a number of different filters versus U21 seasons over the past 8 years, because that's how far back my database goes. Keeping his aerial duel level as a consistent, but then changing the other two variables to other things that he has. So if you look at this first one, shots and progressive runs. You look at Marcus Thuram and Dango Ouattara, bigger, wide, or central forwards. Manzambi is the other name in that threshold. Then if you look at final third passes and expected assists, and all of a sudden you get two midfielders and a right back. So more like playmakers in the midfield, like Lewis Miley or Gavi. And then if you change it to be defensive duels and progressive pass success, you just get a bunch of center backs and some really good center backs. So the things that he does, I think you're right that where he goes, he goes somewhere this summer, I think where he goes, it's going to be really important that the team and the manager and the system has an idea for what they want to do with him. And it's not just, hey, there's this like effervescent, he could play a number of different things. He's going to be really good depth. He could do whatever we need him to do on a given day. I don't think you're going to bring the best out of him because even if a player can do a number of different things, I don't think they're best suited to do all of those different things because they're going to be doing different things on a game to game basis. A lot of players, like when they change positions, it's like a big deal to change positions. Like over the course of a season, you'll see performance dips and then players like regain a level. To do that on a game to game basis would not be good for a player. So just because he can doesn't mean he should.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of spoken about this on the channel before, but how because he's playing for a lesser team at the moment, he's probably tasked with a lot of different jobs at different times, and it's a lot of kind of playing off the cuff and just trying to drive his team forward where possible. Whereas when he maybe makes that step up, there's more specific instructions, more specific responsibilities because he doesn't have to do all that heavy lifting elsewhere. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of attribute a coach really hones in on. Which attribute do they think is maximizing him? Like, do they want him to be because I think he can be a box crasher for sure. He can be someone that scores a lot of goals. He could be someone that helps in the first phase or the second phase of kind of progression. There's so many different things that he could do. But it'll be interesting to see which one a manager really thinks, okay, that's him. That's the type of player he's going to be.
I think the where he's going to be best suited. I mean, it's one of those things that he does now. So Freiburg getting it right with that. But playing in a midfield 2 or midfield 3 where there's somebody behind him and it's more of like a traditional type of a passer. Because what he does the best, I think his number one standout trait as a midfielder is his ability to take players on and do so. Like if you look at where it is across the map, it's literally across the entire final third. There's not really a weakness. There's not like one tendency that oh yeah, well, he plays across the pitch, but predominantly he operates from the left hand side or from a certain pocket or something, and that's where he makes his money. No, he does it literally across the entire pitch. Going to a team and going to a place where he can have the freedom to do that, I think is probably going to best suit him, and also it would best suit the team that he goes to because if he can influence different parts of the pitch and do so really well, that's a big plus for the team that he's going to.
So at the moment, he's being partnered with Eggestein in a double pivot for Freiburg's midfield. Now, if you look at both of their heat maps, Eggestein does a lot less moving around. He's kind of the holder, and Manzambi's given much more freedom to do things like that, carry it whichever direction he wants, but also get into the final third at times to get on the end of cutbacks or whatever. But it'll be very interesting because if he does long term end up at a top team, he's someone that you probably want to partner next to a passer of the ball, someone who can play through the lines, keep play ticking, because he's going to be someone that's more driving you up the pitch with carries. But also, because at Freiburg he's getting a lot of freedom, you're seeing him in the final third a lot. Now, I reckon that is partly because Freiburg get a lot of space on transition. And so if he's, carrying the ball over here because there's lots of space to do that, then that's beneficial to him. But if he goes to a top club, he's going to have much more limited space, and those carries out wide aren't going to be as effective. It's probably more about moving the ball rather than kind of taking longer and carrying it there. So that's where it's going to be important to kind of develop his game. Where I do think his carrying can be effective even at a top team is obviously in that first phase or second phase, where especially in the Premier League, it's so difficult to get out of presses. The midfield is so contested. His like dribbling in these kind of areas and then laying it off is probably going to be how he's best used, especially in the Premier League. I probably see the next step for him going to a similar standing team, or maybe something a little bit higher, but in the Premier League. Now, I don't think he's necessarily ready for the step up to your Chelseas, your Man Cities, or whatever. I think if he goes to a Bournemouth, a Brighton, Everton, even, I think you'll see someone that just goes up and up levels. And I also think the fact that those teams play on transition at times, especially someone like Everton, will really get the best out of his carrying and his athletic profile and allow him the space to use what he's got, basically.
Yeah, see, I think it may be the opposite sort of path to get to where he needs to go. I think he may be better suited going to like a Stuttgart or a Dortmund, somewhere that's in the Bundesliga, but is a more higher possession side, a team that dominates the ball more. So he can round off those, skills on the ball, become a better passer, be more comfortable in that sort of a system, and then go to, the ultimate step being after this one. I agree, he's not ready to go to like a Man City yet, but I think that is, the next step. But I think he'd be better suited doing so from a higher possession German side first.
So let us know where you think Manzambi should join this summer. It's probably likely he's going to be leaving Freiburg, so where would be his next best option? Please do subscribe to the channel. Let us know which player you want to see us review next. And until then, we'll see you next time.